Hey, welcome back to Hamlet by Shakespeare, Act 1, Scene 3. What we're going to have here is a scene to gain the audience's empathy for Polonius and his family, his son Laertes and his daughter Ophelia. Now, Ophelia is a love interest of Hamlet Jr., and her brother is going to tell her, you need to watch out because even though he's saying he likes you, he's going to be the king eventually, and he'll have to make decisions not based on his feelings, but based on his obligation to the state. And her father is going to tell her the same thing. There is also a passage in this act where Polonius will give his son advice, which comprises very famous lines that are often quoted from this play. So, this is scene 3. Laertes comes in and tells his sister that he's getting ready to leave. And Laertes says to her in line 5, after she says, "Do you doubt that? For Hamlet in the trifling of his favor, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood. He's young, he's dumb, he's full of dumb." Or you can rhyme that how you want. Be careful when you're dating a prince. A violet in the youth of priming nature, forward, not permanent, sweet, not lasting, the perfume and suppliance of a minute, no more. This is a passing fancy. And whatever you do, don't go to bed with him. Don't give up your virtue. And this is an example of a long Western tradition where the most prized possession is virginity, which is obviously ridiculous. It always makes me laugh because none of us would be here if everybody was still a virgin. But it's a good way to make good people feel bad. Saying, you lost your virginity. And Ophelia asks her brother, "No more, but so?" Think it no more whenever Hamlet is saying nice things to her. For nature crescent does not grow alone in thews and bulk, but as this temple waxes, the inward service of the mind and soul grows wide withal. Perhaps he loves you now, and now no soil nor cattle doth besmirch the virtue of his will. But, and here's the but, you must fear his greatness weighed. His will is not his own, for he himself is subject to his birth. Can you imagine if you were in love with somebody and the person was in love with you, that you were told by your brother, you know what, he lives in the wrong zip code, so you can't trust that because he's obligated to his zip code. Or you know what, she's not from quality people, so even though she thinks she's in love with you, it's only for right now. He may not, as unvalued persons do, meaning people who are not royalty, unvalued, carve for himself, for on his choice depends the safety and health of the whole state. Therefore must his choice be circumscribed unto the voice and yielding of that body whereof he is the head. He can't choose who he's going to be in love with, because the love part, the marriage part, will be dictated by convenience of politics. And if he says he loves you, if it's your wisdom so far to believe it, as he in particular act in place may give his saying deed, which is no further than the main voice of Denmark going withal, then weigh what loss your honor may sustain. If with too credent ear you list his song, if you are too believing in listening to his songs of love, or you lose your heart, or your chaste treasure. Can you imagine calling women's hymen a treasure? But here it is, right? Or your chaste treasure open to his unmastered importunity. Fear it, Ophelia. Fear it, dear sister. Keep you in the rear of your affection, out of the shot and danger of desire. The chariest, meaning the chastest, maid is prodigal enough if she unmask her beauty to the moon. Can you imagine if you're a woman and you go out naked under the moonlight? You're impacting your chastity. Virtue itself escapes not calumnious strokes. The canker galls the infants of the spring. You're going to get VD, and you'll conceive, and your child be born with syphilis too. The canker galls the infants of the spring, too oft before their buttons be disclosed. And in the morning, and liquid dew of youth, contagious blasphemous are most infinite. Be wary. Best safely lies in fear. Be afraid. Be afraid of your love. Be afraid of your heart and your desire. And then Ophelia gives him a kind of a nice rebuttal and says, look, so you're preaching to me. Are you going to be like the preachers who talk about virtue and chastity, who are sleeping around with the whole congregation? Now, I don't know about you, but I have met ministers who do that. And you must know, I don't believe in a higher power. I do believe in the importance of religion. I don't believe in an afterlife. I do believe in the comfort that people take in having religious belief. And so I was on the board of a church. I was the pastor parish relations person. And that was with the pastor and the congregation, knowing that I don't believe in the divine. And then I watched that pastor... Quiet! Excuse me. I watched that pastor, the way he changed, the way he preached or talked, when somebody who was higher up in that church came to visit and see. And I resigned the position. And I told him, I do not think you understand your symbolic importance. And he looked at me and said, I think you don't understand how serious things are. I didn't know it at the time when I resigned, being a mediator between the minister and the congregation, that I knew he was having support groups to help people who had been sexually abused. But he was sleeping with not one, not two, not three. He was using that in order to have sex with women who had been abused. He was a hypocrite. That truth came out. He can never be a Methodist minister again. He ended up marrying one of those people from the support group who had been sexually abused as a child. I'm glad I got out when I did. And so she says, look, I shall the effect of this good lesson keep as watchman to my heart. But, my good brother, Do not as some ungracious pastors do, show me the steep and thorny way to heaven, whilst like a puffed and reckless libertine, himself the primrose path of dalliance treads, and recks not his own red. So, I'll keep your advice in mind. Just don't be a hypocrite. Don't go telling me that the stairway to heaven is full of thorns and roses while you're out there doing whatever you feel like doing, being a libertine. And Laertes tells her, "Oh, fear me not. I stay here too long. My father comes." And Polonius comes in. And then here we have the father's advice. "Yet here, Laertes? Aboard, aboard! For shame! It's time to be traveling. The wind sits in the shoulder of your sail. You need to get on that boat. And you are stayed for. There, my blessing with thee." And then he says, and Polonius is great about this, and Shakespeare's being very ironic. "These few precepts in thy memory see thou character." I'm just going to say a few words, and watch how many words it is. "Give thy thoughts no tongue." So, meaning, don't just think and speak, but think before you speak. "Nor any unproportioned thought his act." Think before you act. "Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. Those friends thou hast in their adoptions tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel, but do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new hatched, unfledged comrade." Don't get calluses in your hand because you're meeting so many friends. Be picky in who you choose to associate with, is what his dad is telling him. "Beware of entrance to a quarrel," so be slow to fight. "But being in a quarrel, bear it that the opposed may beware of thee." But if you do fight, really fight hard. How many of you have heard that advice, right? "Give every man thy ear," so listen, "but few thy voice," so don't speak a lot. Listen a lot and speak when you need to. "Take each man's censure," or criticism, "but reserve thy judgment," so listen to when you're criticized. Don't fall for it necessarily. Think about it and decide if it's true or not. "Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy." Don't spend too much money on clothing. So I could be an example of this. I'm wearing my serape or my poncho right now. This costs $3 at an estate, so. Quiet puppies. But back in the Renaissance, there were many men who, how shall I say, they spent all of their money on clothing so they could look good. And people would think that they were upwardly mobile or wealthy. Do you see that happening today? People spending their money on the clothing they wear instead of where they will live or what they will eat, just so they can look good. And then here is an often quoted line from this play in line 74. "For the apparel oft proclaims the man." This idea of first impressions. You are how you look. Turn on the TV and you can hear this all the time still. "And they in France of the best rank and station," meaning upper class, "and are a most select and generous chief in that." So criticizing France, which the English audience will like, because why? England was involved in wars with France called the 100 Years' War, which I still can't figure out, to be honest with you. And look it up. Google it and find out what the 100-Year War was, because it lasted many more years than a whole century. England and France killing each other. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. Don't borrow money and don't lend money, because loan often loses both itself and friend. How many of you have given somebody money when they needed it, and then you never hear from that person again? I'm thinking of a man who has one leg, who asked me for, I can't remember how much money it was. It might have been $30 or $50 about 2 years ago. And he told me, I will pay you back next week. And then he approached me about 6 months later and said, I still haven't forgotten. And then he approached me a few months later and said, I still haven't forgotten. And then I haven't heard from him for more than a year. He was very chummy with me. He's talked with me for years. But perhaps because I loaned him the money, I won't hear from him again? We'll find out. For me, I'm not worried about the $50. But maybe he will be. And then this famous line, this above all, and this is line 80 in this scene, to thy own self be true. And I would call that idea wisdom. To thine own self be true. Because if you were not true to yourself, how could you ever expect other people to be true to you? Always respect yourself. The phrase I use with my children and used with them when they were growing up, and now they're all grown up, was always choose yourself. I wasn't telling them to be greedy. I wasn't telling them to be unkind. I was telling them, always go with how you yourself feel. Meaning that if somebody is making you uncomfortable, then trust yourself. To thine own self be true. And so Polonius wishes his son farewell, and Laertes wishes his sister farewell, and then Polonius wants to give his daughter some advice, which will be the same advice as his son's advice, because he's worried about his reputation, his honor. Honor is reputation. And Polonius says in line 91, Mary well bethought. 'Tis told me that Hamlet has very often of late given private time to you and yourself. Have your audience been most free and bounteous? So Hamlet's been paying attention to you, and I'm hearing that, you're encouraging it. But what I want you to do is play hard to get. because you can't trust a prince. Now, the problem with all of this is, it's true, Hamlet is a prince. However, how can you say just because somebody is privileged or of higher rank that their feelings are not sincere? And Hamlet's feelings are sincere toward Ophelia. But her father's going to tell her that you could ruin your reputation believing him because, just like her brother told her, he has other obligations. And Ophelia says in line 100, he has, my lord, of late made many tenders of his affections toward me. Affections? Pooh. Hey, pooh still meant the same things that it does today. Alright, we're not talking Winnie the Pooh here. Affections? Shit. You speak like a green girl, meaning you're a greenie. You are naive. So, he goes on to tell her, please play hard to get. Tender yourself more dearly. Or, in line 110, you will tender me a fool. Be hard to get sexually, or you will give me a fool for a daughter. And Ophelia sticks up for Hamlet because she's in love with him too. My lord, talking to her dad, he hath importuned me with love in honorable fashion. Hey, Dad, he's not trying to get down my pants. He really likes me. Fashion, you may call it. Meaning fashion comes and goes, right? Shakespeare's playing with words. Go to. And Ophelia stands up again and has given countenance to his speech, my lord, with almost all the holy vows of heaven. Aye, springes to catch woodcocks. I do know. And isn't this creepy? Here's the dad talking about when he was young and lustful. I do know when the blood burns how prodigal the soul lends, the tongue vows. Well, thanks, Dad, for sharing that with me, but I don't know. I'm thinking that might be TMI. So you told women that you loved them just because you wanted to get your rocks off? Oh, yeah, that's what he's saying. These blazes, daughter, giving more light than heat, extinct in both. Even in their promise, as it is a making, you must not take for fire. So, from this time forth, be scanter of your maiden presence. Set your entreatments at a higher rate than a command to parley. So don't even talk to him very much. For Lord Hamlet believes so much in him that he's young, and with a larger tether may he walk than be given you, so he can do whatever he wants. In few words, Ophelia, do not believe his vows, for they are brokers, not of that dye which their investments show, but mere importers of unholy suits, breathing like sanctified and pious bawds, the better to beguile. Basically, he's calling Hamlet a royal whore. I would not, in plain terms from this time forth, have you slander any moment leisure as to give words of talk with Lord Hamlet. Look to it, I charge you. Come your ways. Don't ever talk to him anymore. Make yourself unavailable. And being a good daughter, Ophelia says, I shall obey. Now, if you have children, who are in love with people you don't want them to be in love with. I'm not talking about being in love with predators. I'm talking about people in their peer group. The last thing you want to do is forbid them to talk to that person. And it could even be friends. Think about your life when you've been told, never do this, never do that. Did it work? Maybe sometimes. But this advice given to Ophelia is going to make her kill herself eventually. All right, we're going to scene 4. And this is the ghost scene. Finally, Hamlet is going to get to talk to his father. The king, the new king, every time he drinks his wine, a trumpet goes off. Hooray! The king's getting drunk. Okay? Hamlet's out there with the guards, waiting to see if the ghost of his father will show up. Hamlet Sr. And there is a whole diatribe against alcoholism in lines about 24 through 35. Because Shakespeare observed that some people are alcoholics. And so we have that conversation that Hamlet is talking about. And then the ghost enters. And then here, in line 39 of this scene 4, Horatio says, "Look, my lord, it comes, the ghost." And Hamlet says, "Angels and ministers of grace defend us. Be thou a spirit of health, or goblin damn, bring with thee airs from heaven, or blast from hell, but be thy intents wicked or charitable, thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee." Okay? Hamlet doesn't know if this is the devil appearing as his father, or if it's his father's spirit. But whatever it is, whether it's from the devil or not, he says, "I'll call thee Hamlet, king, father, real Dane, oh, answer me. Let me not burst in ignorance, but tell why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death, have burst their cerements. Why the sepulchre wherein we saw thee quietly interned has opened its ponderous and marble jaws to cast thee up again. What may this mean?" He wants the ghost to talk to him. And then in line 57, say, "Why is this? Wherefore? What? What the hell's going on here?" And imagine that. Here your father's been dead for less than 2 months, right? And you get told by friends, soldiers, people who are loyal to you, "We've seen your father 3 nights in a row. You might want to come check this out." And you're missing your dad. Wouldn't you go there? I know I would. And the ghost of his father beckons Hamlet and tells him to come forward. Why? Because that ghost does not want to speak in front of the soldiers. Because he's going to tell him a secret. And over in line about 63, Hamlet tells the people he's with, "It will not speak, then I will follow it." And Horatio tells him, "Do not do that." Horatio's afraid. And Hamlet says, "Why? What should be the fear? I do not set my life at a pin's fee. As for my soul, what can it do to that? Being a thing immortal as itself, it waves me forth." Because the ghost is telling him, "Come over, come over, come over. I'll follow it. I will follow it. And Horatius like, but what if it tries to tell you to kill yourself? And Hamlet says, he dismisses that and says in line 79, it waves me still. Go on. I'll follow thee. And Marcellus tries to talk him out of it and tries to hold him back. And Hamlet says, hold off your hands. And Hamlet tells them, my fate cries out and makes each petty artery in this body as hardy as the Nemean lion's nerve. Still I am called. Unhand me, gentlemen, because they're both trying to stop him from following the ghost. Think about that. Kind of like in a horror movie. I heard something on the carport. Well, you shouldn't go out there. I'm going out there anyway. By heaven, I'll make a ghost of him that stops me, that lets me. Okay, so look, do not touch me. I am going to follow this ghost. And so Hamlet and the ghost go off stage. And Marcellus makes this pronouncement, which is eminently true. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Meaning, something really stinks in our country right now. And then they say, let's follow him. And then we have scene 5, which in the next video I will talk to you about. Scene 5 of Act 1 is the next video. But remember, perhaps something bad is going to happen if you go off on your own. Or perhaps you'll find out something that you wish you never knew.